Lord, if you would bless the reading of your word today, we would appreciate that. So we're reading from John today, John 20, 26 through 28. This is from the NIV. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." So now I get to welcome up Steve Carlson, who's going to pinch hit for Dave. Thank God we got Dave off the pulpit, and here comes Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Al. Thank you. So a month or two ago, Pastor Dave asked me if I might have a message for you guys. And immediately I said yes. And then when I actually prayed about it later, I did not hear no from God. But I have to tell you, I'm excited about sharing a few things with you that God has taught me about himself and about his kingdom. I've named this little talk, What If It's True? And I won't try to explain exactly where I'm coming from. I think it'll become evident here in a few minutes. But I do have a couple of motives to share with you. My aims are to help build all of our confidence in God and in his plans and in his Bible, his word, and in Jesus. And also build confidence that it's going to be okay. And I realize that's a little vague, but I'll explain a little bit more about that too. And a little warning, I have not taken theology classes, and I don't feel bad about inserting a couple of what I call commercials in here. I'm guessing that if you go to divinity classes, they tell you not to do this, but I've done it. We'll see what you think. So one of the things that I think about when I think about God and his kingdom is that he's done supernatural things. None of this is new to you, but I just want to kind of take a moment to consider it. First of all, is his creation. He created everything. Again, something we already know. We already know that Jesus healed a variety of people in a variety of ways when he was here. And God has sent his angels to us as well. Again, these are supernatural things that we can't conjure up, but God does. There are also things in nature as well as God showing up. Let's see if I need to back this up a little bit. Yeah, we lost a couple of slides for some reason, but that's okay. Let me tell you about a couple of the things in nature that go through my mind. One of which is the parting of the Red Sea, that when Moses was taking the Israelites out of Egypt and into the desert. That's a big deal. It's a big deal that God stopped the sun when Joshua asked him to show a sign to the Israelites when the Amorites were attacking them. It was a big deal that it was dark over the earth, or at least where Jesus' crucifixion was for that time. Those things kind of stand out to me like a pop-up book when you're reading a story to a child and all of a sudden, wow, something that unfolds to you. That's how some of these things hit me. They startle me a little bit, and I call them startles. And so here's one that comes across to me that way. So from 2 Kings, when the prophet Elisha was with his servant and and they've got an army of enemies surrounding them. Things are not looking good. So from 2 Kings, when the servant of the man of God, that's Elisha, got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" his servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And so here's an artist's rendering of that, but I can put myself in that servant's shoes. And I think about one is that Elisha knew about the unseen world to begin with. And if I'm his servant there on the right-hand side in this artist's depiction, it's like, what did he see and how did that impact him? And so I have to ask myself, is it possible that this was not a myth? It might have been hard to believe when you see it, but I just ask myself, is it possible that this was true, not a myth? And so that's where I'm coming from on the title of this little talk. What if it's true? What if every supernatural event in the Bible actually happened? Here's another one from John 18, when the soldiers and leaders of the Jews were coming to arrest him. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said, and Judas, the traitor, was standing with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. So I can imagine myself being among the disciples, and here is this group of men in the middle of the night coming with torches and weapons at us. And I'm thinking, this is not going to be good. But then Jesus says, "I am he," and they fall back on the ground. That to me is a startle. That is something very special that comes to me as like, hey, this is a big deal, what's going on here. One more. So when Jesus was being transfigured by the Father, while he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid." So I can imagine standing back and being awed by this. That part doesn't get to me that much. The part that startles me, though, is that, my goodness, Jesus was humble. He said, "Get up." The creator of life, the creator of this universe, was modeling humbleness. And so it makes me want to stand back a little bit and consider what I think of as the big picture. Maybe we've all got a different opinion on what the big picture really is. But let me tell you what impacts me. So the first, we were talking about creation a little bit. And so creation happened according to Moses in 6 days. So ask myself, is this just an allegory? Is 6 days a metaphor for a longer period of time? Perhaps like Peter said, with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 days in 2 Peter. One of my favorite verses that talks about this, or touches on it just a little bit about creation, is from Zechariah. "The Lord, who stretches out the heavens, who lays the foundation of the earth, and who forms the human spirit within a person." Who forms the human spirit within a person. What an interesting thought, that our spirits aren't just a little dab of spiritness It's something that God has actually formed. There's content to this spirit that we have. But this kind of reads in kind of a poetic fairy tale fashion, but is this just a fairy tale? God also made extreme or allowed extreme opposites, such as good and evil, such as big and little. And I enjoy the examples that God has given us of the big and little. We've had the Hubble Space Telescope out there showing us the distant reaches of our universe. And then to follow that up, we spent about $10 billion on a new telescope called the James Webb telescope to go even farther than that. And one of the things that both the Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescopes have done is to look at a dark patch in the night sky out there. And you see this piece there in the middle of all the stars, and it's dark, and there's nothing in there. Unless maybe we take a closer look at it, and you may have heard a lot about this, and that is that both the Hubble and the James Webb telescopes, when they took a longer duration picture to be able to catch more rays in there, they found even more distant and numerous galaxies out there. And that impresses me. What also impresses me is the extreme smallness of life that God has created, smaller than we can see even with a microscope. And even the atoms are so small, it's shockingly small. The content of those things, and with properties that defy logic. Another extreme opposite is order and disorder. And a couple of examples of order that I enjoy. Again, this is the big picture. And these extreme opposites of order and disorder. And two favorite examples of something of order that I have are God's Bible, His Word, and His church. Both things that have lasted for thousands of years. That, in my opinion, how in the world could they have lasted like that? And when it comes to disorder, I think of a stack of Jenga blocks and that are just ready to fall apart. And everything else, besides the things that God has put in order, decays or is ready to decay or fall apart like a stack of Jenga blocks. And I think of things out there that get used a lot in our world, like bridges and roads and even computers. They're all falling apart. Another big picture extreme opposite is life and death. And I'm intrigued by science when science tries to capture what is the key characteristic of life. And the jury is still out on that. Yeah, we've got some clues, but we haven't really put our finger on exactly what that is. But as we know in John 14, Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. Jesus said, He is life. Faith and mistrust are other extreme opposites. Okay, so now I'm going to stand aside for a moment. Here comes a commercial, if we're ready for this. And so Al was talking a little bit about family here. And that's a big deal to all of us, I'm sure. And I'm here to suggest to you that it's a very good idea to invest in family time, not just your biological family, but your church family here. We are family. And when I think of family, I think of a couple of pictures that my wife Barbara just came across. My mom just passed away a couple months ago, and she's been helping me go through things. And she pulled out a couple of pictures of something of a scene that happened back in the late '80s, early '90s, and what this is my folks, This person is my dad here, and you can't see my mom, but she's in the background here. And they are just sitting down at the lunch table in a farm kitchen, and my Uncle Charles is here, and Aunt Arlene is doing the dishes with the wife of one of my cousins. And to me, this just says family, and it just says, I'm liking this. And I just wish I were there. And so when I say invest in family time, family's a good thing, but my folks went a long way to go to that little lunchtime there in Kansas. And I would love for you to consider coming to invest in a little bit more family time during our Tuesday evening roundtables. And I know we've all got busy lives. I totally get that. And if it doesn't work for you, I get that. But if it can work for you, this is a wonderful time that we can let down our hair a little bit and actually talk to each other. You get an opportunity this coming Tuesday night to say, Steve, what in the world did you have in mind when you said this? And so you've got that opportunity this coming Tuesday at 6:30. And then on Sunday mornings, we don't start at 10 o'clock. We start at 9:30, actually. And so here we are. Coffee's been made. People are like Trish are actually back there getting things set up for you. And you've got an opportunity to come and talk to family. And I get it. It's not always the most comfortable thing to talk to people that you're not as used to talking about like you are at home. But it's an opportunity for us to treat each other like family. And so when I urge you to consider coming here at 9:30 instead of a few minutes before 10, who would you talk to? Well, here's who I would suggest. First of all, the greeters like John here this morning out front. You could talk to me. Oftentimes I'm milling around in the back. You can talk to people who are standing by themselves. You can talk to shy people. You could talk to new people. And then at 10 till 10, you could sit down and talk to God right before Harry and others begin us in worship. There are lots of other opportunities, as you know about here, to invest in family time. In family camp this year, it's August 1st at Flowing Lake. We have lots of game nights, Bible studies, sporting events, and more. I urge you to consider spending more time with us, your family. So back to the big picture. Here's another facet of life that makes me think about the big picture, and that there's too little time. There's too little time in a day. There's too little time in a week or a month or in your lifetime, for that matter. Not a big surprise to us. Here's another thing that's not a big surprise. Life is hard. Betty talked about wounded hearts out there. Boy, oh boy, our wounded hearts are everywhere. Stresses are everywhere. And I thought for myself, what would have been the stresses of my life? And I started writing them down. And instead of boring you with details, I just started writing down the dates of when certain things happened. And I realized, wow, there's a lot that I hadn't stopped to consider. And then when I got to thinking a little bit more about that, here's what that made me think of. Remember this picture about the dark patch in the night sky? As I got to thinking about it, my goodness, there have been a lot of other stresses. You may not agree that these were big stresses in my life, but they felt like they were big to me. And when I got to thinking about it more and more, there were more stresses that I kept filling in the blank spots with. And then back when I was working, I'm retired now, but back when I was working, I was talking to a colleague, and he had just broken up with his girlfriend, and he was looking a little depressed. And I asked him, hey, how you doing? And he said something that stuck with me. He said, in a little bit different words, he said, life's awful, and then you die. Well, in some ways that's true for all of us. Life can be very tough. And then here, a couple of years later, I was seeing a heart specialist. And interestingly, I walk into his office to talk about a procedure coming up, and he was looking down, and I asked him, doctor, how's it going? And he said, SSDD. And that kind of fills out to something like same stuff, different day. He was very, very frustrated, and I remember thinking that he shared that with me. Should I just leave? Is that how this is going to go? But I just say that, and it stuck with me because we all have stresses, and everyone has them. Even that guy that you see sitting in the pool, looking like, boy, he's got it all together. We all have stresses. And so one other big picture item for me, this again is the world according to Steve. Life is something of a test. And God has, in a sense, planted us on this stage for a few years here on earth to see if we pass the test. With the unseen world out in the audience, the angels, the demons, watching us do our thing here on earth. So how do I pass this test? What do I have to do? And what's more is, how do I keep my eye on the ball? What is the ball? And so the Apostle Paul has shared with us several things that he thinks of being the thing to keep our focus on. And there are several. Of course, focusing on Jesus, grace, weakness, sharing the gospel boldly, community, fruit of the Spirit, unity, persistence in prayer, and one more from 1 Corinthians 13, the chapter in love. But I've got another commercial for you that I want to interrupt it with. And I told you that my buddy from work was frustrated. And actually, I'm a little frustrated too, because only once a year do we have Cinnamon Roll Sunday. And I'm considering starting up a petition to increase the number of Cinnamon Roll Sundays. So back to 1 Corinthians 13. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love, okay? And Paul urges us to focus on love. Well, that's interesting. God is relational. We have a relational God. This sovereign God of ours who made the universe is relational. He wants to talk to us, to be with us, to relate with us. He's jealous for us. I have a hard time understanding that fully, to be frank with you. And so when I think about world history, when I think about the big picture, I think about world history as well. It's not just about God, it's also about how we consider God. And so one of the things that I like to do when I come across a world history timeline is to kind of see how Jesus shows up in there. So here's a typical one that you just see on the internet. It's full of detail. I'm not going to go through any detail in here to you, but I've circled this period where Jesus would show up, but he doesn't. So it just says here, 32 CE, the Christian era, beginnings of Christianity. Couldn't even say Jesus, couldn't even say Christ. It just says the Christian era, beginning on in the year zero. And so when I think of the big picture, I think about that. Even though God showed up and he died for us, he rose for us, humanity does not like to acknowledge him. So that's part of the big picture. So I want to come back to 1 Corinthians 13. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. But here's the curveball for me, is that in that list, that very small list of faith, hope, and love, hope makes the list. Faith and love, oh, those are sure winners. But hope, how did that make the short list? What's going on there? And so I asked myself, hope in what? And so I'm filling this out. I didn't ask the Apostle Paul to fill out the hope here. But here's how I would fill out hope in what? Hope in God's mysteries, like prayer, communion, baptism, in his Spirit living in us believers. Hope in today, God's guidance, his help for my troubles, help for my walk with him, and hope in tomorrow. And God has a long list of promises for us, very dear and special promises for us, including living with him. Can you imagine? Hope in faith. And I could go on there, and I'm gonna move along to something else, because I have a problem with hope. Several of them, actually. And so one is that it sounds kind of flimsy, kind of wispy. It's drowned out by all the distractions that I have in my life. And I need reminding. It drifts away over time. But fortunately, I have reason for confidence in that wispy old hope from Romans 5. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. A reason for confidence. Another one is from also 1 Corinthians 2, one of my favorite passages, also kind of poetic like the one from Zechariah in 1 Corinthians 2. However, as it is written, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. But God has revealed it to us by his Spirit. What a special passage that Paul shared with the Corinthians and with us. But I have even more problems with my hope. And it's that, unfortunately, this imperfect person here is tempted to minimize God or my hope in him. I find myself tempted to think like, oh boy, I pray about my problems, but this one's just too big. He's not going to fix this one. I'm tempted to think it's just prayer and a good outcome for this issue. It's just not going to happen. Or I think about, man, I've got a stack of issues, but God isn't my genie. I shouldn't be asking him to fix all of my problems. Or on Communion Sunday, this is the guy who's talking to you, who's thinking like, I've got the crackers and juice now. It's like, as if this is about crackers and juice. Or a couple of years ago, Trish was asking me after I was baptized at Flowing Lake, how'd you feel? How do you feel now? And which is a cool question. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't feel any different, as if you've got to. But it's just another way that I find myself inadvertently minimizing my hope or minimizing God. But these things just make me want to ask myself, so do I trust God or not? What is this, Steve? Am I acting like I trust him? And so, fortunately, I have lots of helps from the Bible. And the things, actually, they're people who help me there that God kept in his word. One is that King David, a man after God's own heart, was a big sinner. Even John the Baptist doubted Jesus at one point. The desperate father who asked Jesus for help with his son who had a demon in him. The desperate father said, I do believe, Jesus. Help me with my unbelief, though. And even Paul struggled as well. And So I'm not trying to denigrate these folks, but it makes me think about why God put the stories of imperfect people in the Bible. And I wonder if just one aspect of that is possibly to help people like me with imperfect faith. And so not long ago also, I came across a passage in the Old Testament where I thought, oh, this is cool. Am I hearing the voice of God? I don't hear God's voice audibly, but something kind of unfolded for me like that pop-up book. God was talking to Gideon and said, and the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." And that peace part struck me. Then also when Jesus came back after he rose and visited the disciples in the locked room from John 20, on the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together, with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." And then later, after Thomas had said, "I'm not so sure about this," one of the 12, Thomas, was not with the disciples when Jesus came, so the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." That's a very strong statement. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Peace be with you. Jesus said to Thomas, "Peace be with you." If I were Jesus, I'd have said, "Hey, Thomas, hey, I am here, and remember what you said here just a few days ago?" That's what I would have said. But what does Jesus tell him? Peace be with you. And so, is that just Jesus saying, "Oh, greetings, Thomas"? I don't think so. The way I read it, I read that as Jesus really meaning, "Peace be with you." And so when I hear God say to different people in the Bible, "Peace" or "Peace be with you," here's what I hear. I hear, it's going to be okay. When you have faith in me, it's going to be okay. And I get it that it's going to be okay is not a big, profound phrase, but it's something that's special to me. And when I think about all the troubles and all the stresses in our world, I hear Jesus, I hear God saying, "Peace be with you, Steve." And I think he's saying that to all of us. And so I'm ready for a conclusion. I get it. It's only 10 after 11, so we're getting close here, and maybe winding up a little earlier than we're used to. But let me tell you what I'm thinking here as far as a conclusion is. And so I'm thinking of the big picture that I portrayed for you, and what God has revealed to me, to all of us. And that is, part of the big picture is that God allows curves and hardballs in our very stressful lives. But gratefully, and just like Betty prayed earlier, God has a plan for all of us, and God is good. It's a good plan, and I can relax. God is also my balm. I've got lots of troubles like the rest of you do, but I can have confidence that God's going to help me with these things. I also have a reason for hope. I have a solid hope. I'm also part of his family. I'm not just a friend on earth. I'm part of his family. I'm made in his image. And lastly, I have confidence that despite all of my troubles, despite all of our troubles, when we have faith in Jesus, it's going to be okay. And I realize that's the understatement of the ages. And so I want to bring us back to the beginning. Here's here were the things that I wanted to leave us with. I wanted to help our confidence in God, His plans for us, and in His Word. And I say Word in two ways. One, I capitalize it, the Word, His Son, Jesus, and the Word, the Bible, and also build confidence that it indeed is going to be okay, despite all of the things, all of the arrows coming our way. And so lastly, I just want to ask the question and leave us with this question. What if everything God says happened in the Bible is actually true? Lord, thank you for bringing us here today together. Thank you for making Jesus Christ salt and light, my family, our family. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Lord, for letting me give them what I believe is your message to all of us. Thank you, Lord, for giving us all of these family members who, when we fit together, we make a community of family that just feels so good. Lord, thank you for being with us, and thank you as we go out today for being with us. In